what I told you yesterday about who's performing the actions and that they functioned as brokers to make the deal, that's all in Rashi. The whole explanation is in Rashi. It's just complicated to read it in the Rashi, but that whole analysis is in Rashi. Now, yeah. So at the very end, I pointed out to you yesterday, well, first of all, the Shimon and Levi kill out all the men. So the question is raised, by what right did they do that? So the Rambam says, kidnapping is one of the prohibitions for the non-Jewish world. And all the prohibitions for the non-Jewish world carry the death penalty. And creating justice in your society is also, it's a mitzvah, mishpatim for the non-Jewish world. And the whole town complied with Shechem and didn't take any action, the fact that he raped her and kidnapped her. So that would be the justification for killing them. So the Ramban says, if you're looking for a justification, you don't have to go that far. They're all idol worshippers. So it's it's off the page. Now, that means that they can be executed for what they did without any formal legal procedure. There wasn't a court here, witnesses, excuses. Nobody knew. Nothing. They just come and they kill them. Maybe for the Rambam that's a little easier because kidnapping and aiding and abetting rape and kidnapping, something which everybody knows, and he was, after all, the prince of the region, and he was not embarrassed to keep it secret. So, if it's public knowledge, more so perhaps. At any rate, that's the justification that's given for that action. Now, Jacob says to Shimon and Levi, "You have discomposed me, making me odious on the habits of the land. Everybody's going to hate me, and I'm in danger." And they say, shall our sister be treated like a harlot? That's the interaction here. But this has a follow-up. When Jacob blesses his children, he makes reference to this again. Let's take a look at that. Why is this Dovid here? This is just about what I need. Oh, yeah. This is Yehuda. There we go. Page 537. This is chapter 49, verse 5. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Stolen tools are their weapons. Into their design may my soul not enter, with the congregation do not unite, O my honor. For in their rage they killed a man, and in their wish they hamstrung an ox. Accursed is their rage, for it is mighty, and their wrath, for it is harsh. I will divide them in Yaakov, and I will disperse them in Israel. Okay, so that's a long a long description, but so if you look on page 539, in the middle of the page in the Rashi, for in their rage they killed a man. These are the people of Shechem. All of them are considered as nothing but a single man, but they are no match for Shimon and Levi. Now, skip down to like 8 lines to the bottom. In its simple meaning, as follows. Many men are called a man. You can use the singular for a group, each one being viewed individually. In their rage, they killed every man at whom they were angry. So, Yaakov is criticizing them for this. Not now for the danger that he put them in, that they put him in. Not that they exposed Jacob and his family to the danger of the Canaanites surrounding the area. That's not the complaint here at all. The complaint here is that they killed him. And they killed him out of anger. So the Ramban says something very remarkable here. This, I forget who said yesterday, maybe you said it, about the spirituality in the bris milah, in the circumcision. He says, these people did bris milah. Bris milah is a very significant action. Difficult, it's painful, significant action. They were motivated for money, no question about it. But who knows? They certainly stepped out of their normal environment. Maybe if the association had kept up, and maybe you had an influence on them, they too would have come to adopt our belief in the Creator and join us in serving the Creator. And since you forfeited that, you're guilty for killing them. Okay, that's what the Ramban says. Now, Rabbi Meisman, who showed this to me, says, let's do a little logic here. You are guilty because you killed them. You should have taken into account that if they will do circumcision, they did do circumcision, maybe they'll make the rest of the transition and come to serve the Creator. But, excuse me, they committed a crime, a capital crime. So what if they'll do tshuva? So what? Does tshuva excuse someone from a crime that's punishable by an earthly court? Definitely not. Definitely not. If someone eats a cheeseburger, he's going to get malchus. If he's mechal Shabbos, he's going to be executed by the court. He can prove with 1,000 psychologists that he's changed his mind, changed his heart, changed his priorities, and he hates himself for doing it, and so on. Doesn't matter. The earthly court does not take into account changes of character, changes of mind. It does not take tshuva into account. What we're being told here is something very remarkable. That a non-Jew who violates one of his commandments and therefore is guilty of punishment of death can avoid the punishment of death if he does tshuva and changes his ways. That's a very, very remarkable idea. When you think about it, there are other cases as well. People worry about the mitzvah to wipe out Amalek. Isn't that genocide? I'm glad you looked up that long word in the dictionary so you could use it in the attack. But actually, if you look in the Rambam, in Perek Vav, Hilchos Malachim, the 6th chapter of the laws of kings and their wars, as Maimonides puts it, he says, you don't make a war with anyone in the world, shum odom ba'olam, no person in the world, unless you first offer him peace. And he says, word for word, Amalek and the 7 nations of the land of Israel, you must first offer them peace. And only if they don't accept your conditions for peace, do you go to war with them. But these people are all idol worshippers. What do you mean peace? What do you mean accept them? We even had Amalekite converts. So, how could that be? The answer is because if they will do tshuva, they avoid earthly punishment for what they did. That's something that no Jew has. No Jew has anything like that. So it's something to... Now, I have told this to people. First of all, they say, that's crazy. I can't believe it. No, you must be misinterpreting the Ramban. Okay, let's take it out and look. And they twist this way and that way. Maybe up means down, and maybe right means left. They write it in green letters. Maybe they'll turn it around. But you can't get out of it. That's what he says. So you have to take this into account. And that is what the Ramban explains was Yaakov's upset with them that they killed the people of Shechem. Yeah.
I would also ask if they used a mitzvah as a resource to actually, to weaken them. So could that also be even a little more of an issue,
That's an interesting question. They used a mitzvah to weaken them. Their thought was they're holding her captive, and we have to rectify that, and we're allowed to deceive them, we're allowed to lie. We do not hold that it's always wrong to lie. And indeed, if you hold that it's always wrong to lie, check your morals. Your morals are inadequate if you think that's true, even though Kant said so, but Kant was dead wrong on that. So, is it a problem to use a mitzvah in order to get them? Let's say the mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah for them.
Right.
So.
But for them, not for them, but for.
Well, but so what?
It's what Abraham used to do.
It's not a mitzvah for them to be circumcised.
Right.
So, it's not as if they're using something holy for a non-holy purpose.
Right.
I took that to be the sense of your question. But their surgery isn't holy at all. So, I can't see the connection in that way.
Is it holy for Abraham and his descendants?
Yeah, right. God commanded Abraham, him and some of his descendants, not all, some of his descendants. Yeah, you want to ask a question?
Yeah. Maybe this part's confusing here because if someone is, to my knowledge, someone's fighting for the death penalty, you can't just go out and kill them. I think they have to be processed through a beis din, and the beis din does it.
Right.
Even so, obviously they didn't have a beis din at this point, at least the city of Shem. But what's giving someone the right to go out and then kill this person now?
Yeah, so I think that I mentioned that. In other words, if I would do it in Lumdus, I would say that what creates the decree of death for a crime for a Jew is the decree of the court. That's what makes him liable to the death penalty. But it sounds from here like what makes the non-Jew liable to the death penalty is his committing the crime. And therefore the procedure of the court would only be to identify that he in fact did the crime. But the sign, the seal of the death penalty is on him from committing the crime, not from the beis din, rendering the judgment. And that would be a big difference between the two. Yeah? Okay. I can't see with my reading glasses. Nobody else is saying this up? Okay. Yeah.
What is the tshuva that the Amalekite, the descendants of the Amalekite, who is an Amalekite, what is the tshuva that he would have to do?
So the Rabbi says there are two parts. First of all, they'll have to agree to keep the 7 mitzvos that non-Jews have to keep. And secondly, if they're going to live where we live, they have to be second-class citizens. They cannot be equal citizens. They have to pay special taxes, render special services. They have no say in how the land and the community is administered. Yeah, that's right, not democratic. Yeah.
How does it work if you want to administer capital punishment to a non-Jew because he does the crime and he does tshuva? How does it work that you know that he did tshuva and you don't?
How does it work that you know that he did tshuva? Well, in this case, we ask them, here are your choices. Either we go to war, or you accept these things upon yourselves. Now, they are a community of people. They're visible. They're not hiding in a cave. They're not scattered all over the world. So if they continue to maintain their idol-worshipping temples and their services and so on, and have the holidays and so on, then we know that they're not keeping to their word, and then we go back to war. I think it's pretty, not difficult to observe. And then they have to prosecute the individuals who don't buy it, which is what every society does when they have someone who's like keeping to the laws of the society. Yeah? Okay, so back to where we are. Yeah, here we go. So now we're up to chapter 35. Page 389. God said to Jacob, "Arise, go to Bethel and dwell there, and make an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from Esau your brother." So Rashi says something here which I can't sort of motivate from a question on the verse, but let's take a look and see what Rashi says and see if we can understand. Rashi says, "Arise, go up." That's what he's commenting on. Arise and go up. And he says, since you delayed fulfillment of your vow, so, which is the vow to come back to your father, that's what you wanted to do, you're punished. That's why you're punished by Dinah being raped. This came to you from your daughter. That's why. So in other words, I think the diuk here is kum alei. We have this in English, and probably English took it from the Bible. Suppose you tell somebody, get up and go. Why would you say that rather than just go? Get up and go means there's some resistance there, some laziness there. I'm pushing you. I want you to move fast, no delay. Whereas I'm overcoming the possibility of delay. If God says this to him now, that phraseology indicates there was some kind of delay, something that was held back, and I'm telling you, get moving. That's, I think, what's motivating Rashi to put in here, this idea that there was a delay, and God is telling him to not put up with the delay. Now here we have another example of a failing that's attributed to Jacob, which also could be responsible for losing his merit to be able to save Dinah from the rape. So we spoke about that by putting her in a box. So here would be another aspect to that, yeah.
Isn't there also a redundancy here? Because you're saying arise, go up. Doesn't that connote the same thing?
Not at all. Arise means you're sitting down, stand up. It's get up and go. Get up means get up from sitting usually, because otherwise you would be up already, right? No, alei here either means that the place is in the mountains, I think, and this is not, and alei in Hebrew sometimes means just a change of location. The idea of aliyah to Israel is a little bit of an exaggeration, because when the Tanakh describes going from one place to another, it often uses the verb Allah. Why that is, I don't know exactly, but it's not as if Israel is geographically higher than other places. Even though the Gemara as a drasha takes it that way, but that's a drasha. It's not Shot. Yeah.
So I like this idea that he like lingered here right at the very start of this. It says he bought part of the field where he had spread his tent right at the beginning of when he arrives at the city. And there's this sense that like this is the first time that he has wealth of his own and he's not being chased and he's not bound by Laban and he's able to like put down roots. And he does so here. And I was this is sort of the question out of this, which is that does Yaakov start to, be concerned with idol worship, not just because he's going to Hashem, but because his sons have picked up idol worship in this place, and maybe that's part of what maybe shifted them away from him, from the way that he would have done things.
You're skipping ahead to the next, which we haven't read yet. That's you have to try to refrain from doing that because you're asking something we haven't read. It sounds, but I think you're right. I think, in other words, he went to Shechem. It's not clear why he went to Shechem. And he obviously wasn't just resting overnight there. He bought the right to use a piece of land. Now, I asked my Rebbetzin about the 18 months, and she didn't have an explanation either, what he was doing with 18 months in Sukkot. But that's not considered a delay. This is considered a delay. So that's deep as that mystery. That's just my ignorance. I just don't know what that's about. Okay, so now, verse 2, Jacob said to his household, told them with him, discard the alien gods that are in your midst, cleanse yourselves, and change your clothes. In preparation, going up to Bethel, base kill. Now you're suggesting, well, maybe they picked up some idol worship, while they're lingering over here. I think that's going very, very far. First of all, Jacob is only talking about statues. He says, discard them. Second of all, it's only because he's going up to Bethel. In the meantime, didn't bother him. What, they were worshiping idols in the meantime? Third of all, nowhere in the text, nowhere in technical context, nowhere in the oral tradition, there's even a hint that there was idol worship going on here. But they took the booty from Shechem. They took all the goods of Shechem. It says so. We read it, right? In the booty from Shechem, there were idols. Now, there are certain rules as to what you can and cannot do with idols, and sometimes there are ways a non-Jew can nullify an idol by behaving in such a way that he discards it. If the Jews of that time had the legal status of non-Jews, which many say, they could simply nullify it and sell it. There's nothing wrong with it. And now Abraham's saying to them, not for us. Not for us. Could be done. I don't want it. Going up to the base of the place where I built an altar, a place where God appeared to me, and so forth and so on. This we can't have. And you can use it for a flower pot. You don't have to sell it. You can use it for a flower pot. So it's not. I don't think that's the problem. Yeah.
It's a great point that they would have immediately gotten it from the plunder. But in the last proof I'll try to bring to give something to it is Dinah was associating with the local girls. And so that was a sense that maybe Yaakov's children were given the opportunity to start to assimilate and integrate within this place.
First of all, we don't know whether it was only one trip. She went out, liros bivnos haaretz. That describes her intention.
It's too much.
It doesn't say that she, this was going on for months before there was a reaction. It doesn't say that. Yeah.
So just wanted to ask you, what was again Yaakov's vow?
So when God appeared to him on the way out with a ladder, he said, I'm asking you to preserve me so I can go back to my father's house. But you don't know the Yaakov Neder. It says he made a vow.
Right. I mean, I'm asking you because I was thinking that we also learned that the time that Yosef spent away from him was also a punishment for taking too long to visit his parents or
yeah, but that's tricky because whether the 14 years of Sheva Abraham included, I mean that's a very tricky sugya over there.
This is not the most solid, but I'll pull the Rashi here, which is interesting. When it's introducing Dinah, the daughter of Leah. Why is she not called the daughter of Yaakov? But because of her going out, she's called the daughter of Leah, because Leah too was in the habit of going out, as is written, and Leah went out to meet him. And so there's this idea that this is something that's part of Dinah's character, and that maybe she had opportunity to do this at several occasions. There's a sense that that might be true.
Sure, but there don't have to be occasions in Shem. Good try. Good try. Very good. Okay, fine. So now he says, get rid of them, cleanse yourselves. I mean, Rashi says it word for word. I mean, the alien gods which are in your possession from the booty of Shem. Cleanse yourselves of idols. You know, it's association with those idols. Then let us arise, let us go up to Bethel. I will make there an altar for the God who answered me in my time of distress, was with me on the road that I traveled. So they gave to Jacob all the alien gods with their possession, the statues, as well as the rings that were in their ears. And Jacob buried them underneath the elm in Shechem. I guess the rings that were in their ears were also associated with the Avodah Zarah. They journeyed, and there was a godly terror on the cities which were around them, so that they did not pursue the children of Jacob. This is what I told you. That here, his position as Yisrael is enforced. Then Jacob came to Luz, the land of Canaan, Bethel, and he, all the people who were with him, built an altar there and called the place Kel Beis Kel, for it was that God had revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Now comes a very enigmatic verse. Devorah, the wet nurse of Rebekah, died. And she was buried below Bethel, below the Alon, and named it Alon Bachut. Bachut means crying. Who is Devorah? The wet nurse of Rebekah? What is she doing here? What do we care that she died? You know, this isn't a census of the whole population, life and death, and so forth and so on. Let's take a look at Rashi. 8. Devorah, the wet nurse of Rebekah, died. What is Devorah's matter in the household of Jacob? Why is Devorah in Bethel with Jacob's household? What's she doing there? But she was there because Rebekah said to Joseph, someday, to Jacob, I will send and bring you back from there. Go, run away while Esau wants to kill you. I want to save your life, but I will send a messenger for you to bring you back. She sent Devorah to him in Padan Aram to tell him to depart from there. So he went to Jacob before he left Lavan, while he was still with Lavan. And she died on the way back. Now, Rashi says, I learned this from Rabbi Moshe Adarshan. He's someone who preceded Rashi and wrote a lot, and Rashi had his scrolls available, and he quotes him very often. So this is a place where there was crying, as we said. And now, the very bottom of Rashi, 3 lines to the bottom, and the Agada interprets the word alone as follows. Alone can mean an oak tree. Jacob was informed there of a second cause for mourning, for he was told about his mother that she had died. Not only Devorah, the wet nurse, died, but he learned there that Rebekah died also. His mother died also. She who sent Devorah to him to tell him to come home, not clear when she sent him. At what point she sent her. And the crying here, it's not because Devorah died, but because they heard that Rebekah had died. And now he quotes Greek, and I have to explain this to you. He says the word alone in Greek connotes another. So it's another crying. Now, what does it mean when Rashi will quote, others will quote, let's say, a Greek word to explain a Hebrew word? So here you have your academics marching in on their black horses and say, you see, Rashi agrees that the Torah took words from other languages. Rashi agrees that it wasn't all divine. Rashi agrees it didn't all come from Moses. Greek work is much later than Moses. But Rashi is honest and he's realistic and it's really a Greek word and blah, 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 blah. Well, thank you. Rashi never said, implied, even subtly hinted at such a thing. But the idea is this, that the Hebrew language had words in it and the words went out of use. And those words were preserved in other languages because there was interaction between us and other languages. As one archaeologist pointed out, the letters in Greek, the names of the letters in Greek are parallel to the names of the letters in Hebrew, right? Aleph and Alpha, Beis and Beta, Gamma, Gimel and Gamma. Right? They're parallel. Many of them are parallel. Right? But the difference is this, that the names of the letters in Hebrew are words in Hebrew. There's such a thing as an aluf, there's such a thing as a bayit, there's such a thing as a gamal, there's such a thing as a delet. No such thing in Greek as an alpha. It's not a butterfly, and it's not soup, and it's not a bullet, it's just not a word. So clearly, the Greeks took names of their letters from us. They took the names from a language which wasn't their language. They didn't make up names for it. So obviously, we had that influence on the development of the Greek language. So there's no question that there was interaction between the cultures. I'm not saying we took from them, but I'm saying we certainly influenced them. We influenced others as well. So it could be that a Hebrew word has a meaning which is preserved in its Greek counterpart, which isn't preserved in the usage of the word in the rest of the Hebrew literature. And that's what you do when you go to a Greek word to explain the Hebrew word. It's not that you're saying that we borrowed a word from Greek. That's just, verboten. Verboten. It's just nonsense.
And just quick, Rob, what if it's the circumstance where to indicate another culture, they will use words from that culture within Torah? So I think this came up with Laban, right? Aramaic.
This is written 1,000 years before Greek was invented.
Non-point.
I know Greek words, when this was written. That's why the clever critics, the independently minded critics, can use this as a club to beat up the Frummies with, by saying, you see, Greek words got in too, it wasn't kept pure, and so forth and so on. That's where they're coming from. But they don't understand, the correct way to explain it. Yeah.
So there's not Greek, but I know there's Arabic at least in the Chumash. So what's with that?
Same thing. Well, there's no difference between the arguments. Arabic much more so, because Arabic is a cognate language to Hebrew, and Greek is not.
So it makes sense that it's in Chumash.
And we don't know how far back Arabic goes, frankly. We do know from what we saw in the Chumash that Aramaic, some form of Aramaic, Lavan called the place Yagar Sahaduta.
Oh, that's what I was talking about. Sorry.
Oh, you didn't mean Arabic. You meant Aramaic.
Okay.
Right. So that definitely went back. So what?
Is Aramaic considered like some sort of Lashon Kodesh?
No.
Not HaKodesh, I'm saying, but like
No.
there kind of?
No. Not Lashon Kodesh. The words Yagar Sahaduta written in our book are Kodesh, not because of Lashon Kodesh, because the Creator of the universe said to write them there, and that gives a Sefer Torah its kashrus as a kosher Sefer Torah. Now, it has nothing to do with the words being Kodesh. Okay, let's go back to work. So now comes something very, this is what we've spoken about, and we have to see it here now before the time runs out. Verse 9, 392. God appeared to Jacob again when he came to Padan Aram, and he blessed him. And God said to him, now watch this. This is extremely complex. God said to him, your name is Jacob. Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. And he called his name Israel. is right. You have four things here. Four separate things. Number is, well, your name is Jacob. Number two, if you read the translation, your name shall no longer be called Jacob. Well, so what do you mean, tell me it is Jacob? Israel shall be your name. Okay, so now you told me that Israel shall be your name. Is my name Israel now? No, it isn't. Because it says he called his name Israel. So it wasn't Israel yet. What is going on here? So first of all, the translation is not quite right. What I'm saying now is from the Malbim. I don't understand all of the Malbim, but the part that I understand, I think I can communicate to you. There's a very subtle problem with the words here. Let's look at the Hebrew, and I'll translate it with you word for word, and then. Vayera Elokim, God appeared, El Yaakov to Yaakov, O B'Pan Aram, Vayevarcho, so he blessed him. Vayomelo, he said, Elokim. God said to him, Shimcha Yaakov, your name, Jacob, Lo Yikarei, shall not be called, Shimcha, your name, Od, more, Yaakov. Now, if you think about it carefully, the word od here is out of order. Od is an adverb. It explains when and how much the calling will be. Your name shall not be called. The od belongs after the word yikarei. Lo yikarei od will not be called anymore. Shimcha. Jacob will not be called anymore your name. And indeed, when God changes Abraham's name, that's the way it's written. Lo yikarei od shimcha Avraham. When God changes Abraham's name, that's the way it's written. The word od comes after the verb, an adverb, and then a verb, and then an adverb. Here, the word od comes after shimcha. What does that mean? So the Malbim says, you have an entirely different concept here. Here the word od modifies shimcha. There's something called shimcha od. There's shimcha, your name, and then shimcha od is your od name. Od means until, or continuously, or permanently. So there are two names. There's your name and there's your ultimate name. It's called ultimate name. Now let's use that and go back and read the verse. God said to him, your name is Jacob, but your ultimate name shall not be called Jacob, because there are two names. There are two names. Here's your name and your ultimate name. Your name is Jacob, but your ultimate name shall not be called Jacob. But Israel shall be your ultimate name. So now I have Jacob is his name now, and I have an announcement that there's another thing called the ultimate name, and that he will be called. That's Israel, right? So has he given him the name Israel now? No, he has not. He said, your name now is Jacob. I'm telling you something else about your future. 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. In the future, you'll have a different name called your Shimcha Od, your ultimate name. That name will be Yisrael. So he's distinguished between the present and the future. The present is Jacob, and the future is Yisrael. So at this point, he has not given him the name Yisrael. And that's why the verse ends, and he called his name Israel. Yisrael. Meaning, that ultimate name is available for you now also. But at present, you'll have two names. At present, you'll have two names. Your name and your ultimate name will be active for you simultaneously. But in the end, the name Jacob will fall away, and the name Israel will be your ultimate name. That way, the verse makes perfect sense. Every one of the four clauses in the verse is necessary to communicate the idea. And the idea, as I have told you several times out of the text, is that Jacob gets an extra name. His name isn't changed. And here the English translation is really at fault, because they use the same words in English here that are used for Abraham. And in Abraham's case, his name is changed. Avram is lost. The Gemara says anyone who calls our first patriarch Avram violates a mitzvah saseh to call him Avraham. Nothing like that is true for Jacob. The Torah itself calls him Jacob after this. That's on the surface. You know, what's going on here? Yeah.
So when does he actually lose the name Jacob then? You were talking about before that if he's eventually going to only have his ultimate name of Yisrael, and then Jacob will fall off. But I thought he's never losing a name. I thought he always has the name Yaakov and always has the name Yisrael.
It's true for him as a person, but as far as the people is concerned, there will come a time when I heard this from Rabbi Soloveitchik a million years ago on Rishonim. In Slichus, there are two verses back to back. You know what? Give me a siddur. I won't. A regular siddur. I won't quote it right if I don't look at it. You don't have to see it. But I just want to make sure I quote it right. In Slichus, they have the two verses are back to back, one with Jacob and one with Yisrael, and it's very, how shall I say, it's very indicative. Here we go. Slichus. Back here. Yeah. So one verse is like this. Zechor la'Avram Yitzchak u'liyisrael vadecha. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Yisrael, your servants. Sheshba'at lahem bach, you swore to them by yourself. V'taberem, you spoke to them. Arba ezarachem k'chovei hashemayim, I shall multiply your descendants like the stars of the heavens. All this land which I have said, I will give to your descendants. Where the third patriarch's name is Yisrael, it mentions the promise of multiplication and blessing and possession of the land. The next verse starts the exact same way, except instead of saying Yisrael, it says Yaakov. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Al tefen el kshi ha'amazeh el rish'o el chataso. Don't turn to the rebelliousness and the evil and the sin of this people. So when it's Jacob, it's a description of utter failure, and with Israel, it's a description of tremendous success. So this is the indication of the difference that the names carry. But ultimately, Jewish people will be Israel and only Israel, not Jacob. Yeah.
So I think you've made like a formidable effort throughout this to show that Yaakov is not operating in a capacity of deceit, and certainly not so much and not even so much in deception a lot of the time that you would think. But here, Rashi seems to tie Yaakov as a name directly to a concept of deceit, even to like the root word. So in the number 10, no longer will your name be Yaakov, which is a term denoting a person who comes in ambush and deceit. And then in the footnote on mine it says that does come from the root of deceit and it ties the names together. Or rather, Israel, a term denoting a prince and a leader. So what do we do with the Rashi here? Or am I misinterpreting it?
Yeah, you're misinterpreting it.
Okay.
Okay, we didn't read this Rashi. You're leaving out the verb. It says, your name shall not be called. Who calls you by your name? Some observer, someone else calls you by this name. It's describing how you will be identified and described by those who are observing you. It doesn't say that you are. It says that's how they will call you. This is what Esau said. This is what Esau and by the way, this continues even the present day. I mentioned to you that Alvin Plantinga makes this gigantic mistake of treating Jacob as a conniving cheat, right? Because he doesn't know how to read Psukim carefully, even though he's a great philosopher.
Why doesn't Rashi make this more clear here? The statement here is very ambiguous.
Not at all. It's not ambiguous at all. The words from the verse that he is quoting are, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob." Being called Jacob, it means someone's calling you by that name. Speaking from the point of view of the observer. Okay, very good. Have a wonderful Shabbos.